Welcome to the DSPN.
Team New Zealand's in trouble.
Goal! He's done it again, Ricky Herbert.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome to the podcast, people. Martin, Devlin, Lachlan Waugh, talking all the day sports news. There's been a hell of a lot's taken place over the weekend. We'll cover as much as we possibly can. If you're listening on Rover or watching on the DSPN YouTube channel, thank you so much for joining us. A little bit of admin, always. I know you're probably getting sick of it, but if you can click the subscribe button on YouTube, that would be brilliant. We're trying to get to 5,000 subscribers as quick as we possibly can. If you can like, share, follow, leave us a comment, all of that, and we'll try and get back to as many as we possibly can. Thank you. Special guests today on the show, Justin Marshall talking Six Nations, Ian Thomsen on the Luka Dončić, Anthony Davis blockbuster NBA trade, Rahul Patil wrapping up all the latest cricket news, including Super Smash, and England and T20 and Sri Lanka in the Test getting utterly thrashed. We'll talk Premier League amongst many other topics in the Tide 5, and we kick the show off, as always, with a sermon from the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
Two of our most well-known sportsmen in action yesterday morning with totally contrasting fortunes for them both. One is going great guns, while the other looks gone. Nottingham Forest striker Chris Wood's career reaching giddy heights, while former UFC middleweight champ Israel Adesanya's star is fading equally fast. Wood scored a hattrick for Forest versus Brighton yesterday. That's 17 for the season already, 86 Premier League goals in total. Any goal scorer in England would love those stats alongside their name. He is an absolute superstar of the league right now. Whereas Izzy, once among the biggest box office draw cards in the octagon, has now lost 3 fights in a row, 4 in the last 5. He's no longer on pay-per-view and sliding down the rankings faster than he hit the canvas after Imavov took him out in Saudi. He looks, I hate to say it, he looks gone. He looks slow, he looks uncertain. He just doesn't look the fighter that he once was. He's 36 and he's fought a hell of a lot of fights in the last few years. The punch that knocked him down yesterday came in just the second round, and his hands were kind of by his sides. He was offering very little defence. Wood, though, is simply flying. He's just turned 33. He signed a brand new contract last week and is probably playing the best football of his life. So while Chris Wood is going from strength to strength, sadly it's the opposite for Israel. I hate to say it, but he looks spent.
Devlin.
Six Nations rugby to start with. First round over the weekend. France thrashing hapless Wales. Scotland nervy but edged Italy. And we'll start with Ireland 27-22 over England. 81 Test veteran of the All Blacks. He'll be on our screens all year as we look forward to another fantastic season of rugby. Justin Marshall joins us again. Marshy.
Yeah, good afternoon to you, Marty, and everybody. Hey, look, what a fantastic weekend of rugby, wasn't it? It does still feel like cricket season, but once you actually got up, got your coffee over breakfast and watched the Six Nations over the weekend, it was very easy to get into rugby mode. Let's
start with the game that was, the marquee match of the round, and that was Ireland over England. These are my brief thoughts on it for what they're worth. England did well to be ahead at half-time, especially down to 14. That was a bit costly for them. Ireland went on a roll, 22-0 before those two, I'm not going to call them garbage time tries, but they were 2 tries that inflated the score. Was it a lot more comfortable for Ireland than those numbers 27-22 suggest?
Yeah, I think the scoreline did flatter England. To be perfectly honest, they did score those 2 very late tries, and that was when Ireland had the game secured and they'd made a lot of substitutes. And I think, to a degree, they just switched off slightly because they had the game in the bag. There was no way England was going to accumulate enough points in that amount of time to actually win the Test match. So I think defensively they just slackened off, which they'll be annoyed about because they did allow England back into the match in terms of getting a bonus point. But I think probably the real positive for England was the fact that they defended really well for the vast majority of the game. It was just eventually they got worn down, but to a degree they were in the contest. It was a high quality contest, particularly the first half. Both teams went at it, and England going in with that halftime advantage showed that they were super competitive. But when Ireland really turned up the basically the jet packs and got their game plan in motion and started to really attack with ball in hand and be a bit more patient, man, they look good.
I was reading some really interesting comments from Matt Dawson, the former England and Lions fly half, and he won a World Cup, didn't he, in 2003? And he was saying that he thinks that the England style is just too frenetic. He said that rush defence, you continually do that, it saps you. He said every time they've got the ball, they're trying to do something with it. He said eventually that saps you, and in that last 20 minutes, they're running out of legs. Has he got a point?
Look, I just think they just did a mountain of defending, really. Look, when you look at the statistics, Ireland had the lion's share of the ball and possession. So England, basically, when they got the opportunity with the ball, Ireland had the peg in their own half a lot, so they were forced into a kicking strategy. I liked their shape. Their shape was actually really good, and I still think Marcus Smith is a really exciting, creative player with a positive attitude and mindset. And I certainly feel that a lot of players around him are benefiting from that. And the wingers, the fullbacks, everybody's getting into the game. I disagree that they're frenetic. Like I said, I thought their shape was good. They created space. They made line breaks. They've stood up against a very good Ireland side. There's a lot of positives England can take out of that performance, but they want to do less defending. They were asked to do a lot of tackling, a lot of pressure inside their own 22, and that is what saps your energy, not having the ball and having to defend so much. But I think they can take a lot away from that performance. I wouldn't be massively despondent that they're in no man's land at the moment. They're still a side that can be very, very dangerous.
Well, over the last couple of times we've chatted, and also looking at Ireland at the end of last year, both of us have been wondering, how good is this Ireland side? Have they got to that stage now where they're a bit like South Africa, that they're just winning games because they are that good that they can win these games? Are they as good, I suppose, is what I'm asking, as they were when they were the number one ranked side in the world and they went 18 or so unbeaten? Are they as good as that team?
I think they're resetting themselves. Yeah, there's no doubt about the fact. Love him or hate him, Johnny Sexton was a massive architect in the way that they played, and he was a pivotal component of the reason why Ireland was so very good tactically. He was a very smart rugby player, and he played in the right areas. Obviously a very good goal kicker. They missed their first 3 kicks at goal, Ireland, and didn't convert their first 2 tries. And Johnny Sexton was more ruthless than that. And his kicking strategy was very, very good. So when they were under pressure, he basically was able to eliminate that pressure and put Ireland on the front foot. So what they're trying to do is grow that next person into that jersey. And at the moment, they're fighting between those 2 players to get that jersey. So I think Prendergast was okay, but whether or not he's the man for the job, I'm not sure. But yeah, very much they are a team that is still very good. They've got game breakers, and I thought the 3 New Zealanders were outstanding.
I was just going to mention that. Yeah, look, and you're sitting there looking at, especially the number 9 on his back, thinking, I kind of like it. And Bundy Aki, who every year I think, is this his last year, he's Tuolangi, isn't he? He's just a beast of a player. You were talking last week about replacing, Geordie Barrett, or is there another 12-13 combination here in New Zealand as well? Man, another one in that mould, in the Ma'a mould. He's a wrecking ball.
Yeah, yes, absolutely he is. And I feel that they use him in a way that, again, has massive impact on players around him, because he runs such good lines, Bundy, and they use him off line out a lot, where he becomes first receiver. He comes outside in. He runs hard. He's hard to get to the ground. And if they don't use him and go behind him or use him as a return ball, he's attracted defenders anyway. So he's a very important cog. The fact that they've got some real talent in that with Henshaw and Ringrose, but Bundy Aki keeps one of them on the bench each week, goes to show what sort of a player he is in terms of the form that he's in, but equally how highly regarded he is in the game plan. I thought him, James Lowe and Jameson Gibson Park were outstanding. So when you're having off days, or you're having days where it's hard work, when you have individuals that step up, game breakers that change the complex of the way that the game is trending, I think that really helps. And that's what good sides historically have, like an Anton Dupont for France. If they're having an off day, you've got a player in there that's a world beater and can change the game. And Ireland have a number of those players, which is massively helpful when you're not having a great day at the office.
One final comment on that. I just thought that the reaction of the Irish players when they scored at the end of the game said to me that this was a really important win for them, and they also were kind of almost acknowledging how good and competitive England were.
Yeah, there's been a bit of chat coming out of basically the UK around exactly the question you asked me, Marty. How good is this Ireland team? Are they the same side that they were 2 years ago? Because obviously they got beaten by New Zealand. They struggled against Australia, probably should have lost that game. Didn't have a great autumn. And, there's been a lot of question marks around this side. And I feel there's probably a massive amount of pressure there, equally with Farrell being missing as coach now that he's coaching the Lions and needs to be taken over. where's this side going to go? So you could probably see from the Irish players' reactions, not only in the tries they were scoring, but actually winning that game, that they probably were hearing all that chatter and thinking, righto, and they went out there and they executed. And to be fair, without those mishaps in the last 7 or 8 minutes, they would have comfortably won that game against a good England side. So, yeah, I think it was a very important win for them. You're bang on.
All right, we'll talk about Andy Farrell, who's in the stand, got the biggest roar of the night, didn't he, when he appeared on the big screen and that. We'll talk about him in a second. I don't know what to say about Wales, mate, and I don't know what to say about France after that. I mean, France looked as though they probably could have beaten them with the C team. It was 43-0. It's, 13 defeats in a row for Wales. And if I can draw a parallel, I think Wales are probably in the same position as my Man United are at the moment. It's not an easy fix, mate. It might even be 4, 5, 6, 7 years. It feels like to me that, all of the new cattle they need is still weaning, and it might take a while for those young players to come into this team.
Yeah, I agree with you. And again, when we talk about game breakers, you look at that Wales team and you go, well, who is a genuine game breaker? Like Liam Williams back in the Welsh jersey at fullback. He hasn't had a lot of game time in the Test jersey for a while. He's a bit of a journeyman now. Still a good player, but he's not opening up the game like he used to do, making line breaks. He's solid, he's consistent. And then you go across the rest of that team and you go, right, well, who is a genuine game breaker here that can open the game up for us, that can create that spark, get everybody in behind them? And there's not really a name that stands out. So unfortunately for Wales, they are just going to have to persevere with what they've got. Yeah. Look, I thought at the end of the day, the Welsh are the Welsh, mate. Like they'll be tenacious. They're passionate. They will grow an arm and a leg for any Test match. I thought they were really resilient in the first quarter of the match. Tackled hard, got their moments, but eventually, like I said, without having that experience, and equally those game breakers, and to a degree, if you work a game plan around game breakers, they haven't really got any to work around. You're only going to hang in there for so long against good sides in the world, and France are one of the best sides in the world, if not the best. So, yeah, unfortunately for Wales, it's going to be a long old grind. I agree with you.
Scotland versus Italy. This is a great thing you're saying before about watching Six Nations over breakfast. Man, I loved that game too. It looked as though Scotland were in control. Italy fought their way back to 19-all, and then Scotland, edged through. But I mean, it's once again a Scotland side that you think, are they going to be better than this? But they just aren't. And I thought there was a great effort from the Italians.
Again, a great effort from the Italians, and they seem to be consistently doing that now. I think they're a side that people now are thinking about they should be thinking more seriously about them. And I just wonder whether or not the mentality of players are, it's Italy. We're expected to win this game. We've just got to go out there and win it. And instead of actually doing the hard yards to win it, and Scotland made hard work of it. So, look, I think Italy will still cause everybody problems in this competition. Scotland, they're still a very good side. They've got some game breakers. That, I know I'm talking about game breakers a lot, but you look at Van der Merwe on the wing, Russell, Hugh Jones in the midfield had a really good game. Their loose forward trio is really combative, and they're ball players as well. And their tight five's good and strong. So, look, after me talking them up last week saying they're going to be hard work for a few teams, they didn't put in their most complete performance. But like I said, missing Tuipulotu is a big hole in their arsenal, but they're still a very balanced side, and their game next weekend is going to be a belter because they'll get up against the Irish. So, yeah, watch this space to see how good this Scotland team actually is.
Yeah, that game plus France versus England is going to be a crackerjacker as well. Andy Farrell in the stands then. Who do you think, if he was penciling in names for the Lions, who would have impressed him in Dublin?
Well, obviously the three that I mentioned, for Ireland, the Kiwi boys were outstanding. Look, I think Finn Russell is showing, along with Marcus Smith, that they're probably the two front runners for that 10 jersey. Like in a losing side, I thought Marcus Smith, and he's got the ability to play 15 as well, which is massively important when you're picking a Test side. The ability for a player to slot, offer a different dynamic in attack. So I think he would have been impressed with him, no doubt. And the loose forward trio of Ireland is very, very good. Van der Flair and co, the Doris, they're outstanding. But I certainly felt that the back row of England were very, very good. Both the Curry twins, Tom Curry in particular, would have impressed Andy Farrell out of that match. And, I think he's got a lot to pick from, and he would have been really pleased with the contest he saw. There was a lot of players And then you've got your standard guys like Itoji and Marty but they're shoo-ins, aren't they? That all perform well as well.
All right, you're coming up to Auckland. You've got a big day at Sky, so how much are we going to see you on the screens?
Yeah, I have indeed. Yeah, we've got our Super Rugby conference that we're kicking off tomorrow. Looking forward to the start of the Super Rugby season. A full calendar, which I'm involved with. Really looking forward to it. Obviously, the pre-season games happened last week. And I said to you, didn't I, mate? You said, how much do you take out of these pre-season games? I said, when you're a player, not getting injured. I
know, a couple of props.
Two props injured, and so look, everybody's had their hit out. We're only a couple of weeks away from that starting now, so like everybody else, everyone at Sky is looking forward to bringing you the coverage of that, and hopefully we're going to see some really high quality rugby. It's a massive year again for New Zealand rugby and All Black rugby and women's rugby as well. It's a huge calendar. Really looking forward to it. Just before we go, just for something for people to think about in a mindset. And I know Scott Robertson would have been sitting down watching the Six Nations. He's got Ireland, Scotland, Wales this year to contend with, and England. Mm-hmm. And I was really interested to see tactically and keep an eye on it, people, when you watch the Six Nations next weekend, how much cross-kicking there was to get outside of this blitz-style defence, like a real mindset of going, if we can't get it there by hand, we're going to kick it. And if you look at the French game, even Dupont did a cross kick for a try for the French. Because of the umbrella defence and narrowing the field, there's a real mindset from every single team, and I didn't see anyone not doing it, to cross kick into space, to kick the ball there rather than to pass it there and make it contestable as well. So, yeah, very, very interesting tactic from the Six Nations side. I wonder if Scott Robertson went, okay, this is something we have to think about as well.
Well, we did see Damien do that against the Poms in Dunedin, didn't we? And I think
we did indeed. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But I think the mindset has to be, let's not go, oh, that's them, we can do it another way. We are now not the world leaders and being able to tactically outclass everybody. We've got to think, okay, if they're doing that, we've got to think about how we can do that and who can we bring into the game to make that a real weapon for us. And it was very evident watching all of those games at the weekend that was a mindset to get outside this defence that a lot of teams have been struggling with recently. So keep an eye on that space in the next few weeks as you watch the Six Nations unfold.
It's the biggest news to hit the NBA since, well, he's going to tell us. Ian Thomsen wrote The Soul of Basketball. He's worked for ESPN, he's worked for NBA. He's a great old mate who we always contact when something big happens in the world of. And Luka Dončić yesterday traded. He's going to LA, as you know, and coming back the other way is AD. Ian, welcome back to the show. How much of a shock and a surprise has this news been to everybody connected with the NBA?
It is. I was speaking to someone in the NBA just the other day, and they said, Luka's not going anywhere. And everyone assumed he wouldn't. When you have a player that young, that good, who hasn't reached his peak years yet, and you're able to offer him the Supermax deal, he's going to stay. They got to the finals last year. What we didn't know about was the frustration with the new ownership that existed around Luka with his conditioning. He just doesn't look as fit as the other stars. And I think they were not looking forward to paying him all that money, giving him all that power. And when apparently they feel he has not been accountable. So I think this trade is ultimately going to be a fantastic thing for Luka Dončić. This is going to humiliate him, scare him a bit, maybe put a bit of sense into him about getting in better shape. And it's going to expose him on a daily basis to LeBron James, who is the most fit athlete in any sport in America, I would think.
Look, when people are publicly talking, you're 25 years old, and they're publicly talking and say, I've watched, so much footage from this, from your side there about, his attitude, his conditioning, his fitness, and those injuries that come with it. I mean, yeah, there is going to be, for him, it's probably a difficult thing to deal with. But it's true, isn't it, that he doesn't look as though he's in the greatest shape. Maybe he's one of those kind of body shapes that he's never going to be muscle-bound. But is it that serious that something has to be done about this?
this trade is confirmation about what we were all thinking. Is he really serious about being a great player? Does he work out hard? Does he take care of himself? Is he on the right diet? Is he doing everything all the great players do? And you always kind of wondered about it. Is that really true? Am I making too much of it? Am I going by the way he looks? But now that he's been traded, it is true. According to the Mavericks who saw him every day, who were trying to get him to go the other way, to be more, more accountable. And they weren't able to get him to do it. If he was doing what he's supposed to do, they would never have traded him. But they looked at this and confirmed what we were all thinking, that he needs to mature to be the great player that he can be. And I think they decided they couldn't get him to do it. They wouldn't be able to do it. And as soon as they gave him that money, they would lose their last bit of leverage over him. And so it was this bad. It was this bad that they had to trade him.
It's also unusual, isn't it, when something like this happens, that nobody gets a word about it. So, I mean, that aspect to you, are you surprised by that?
I am, and I think two things on that. They did not want it out there because it would have been too hard to trade him. The agent would have got involved. The fans would have gotten involved. It would become very messy. It would become very difficult. And that's why I think it's such a bad trade for the Mavericks, because they didn't want people to know. And so they basically just took the first thing out there. When you look at the trade market for players like Luka, guys who are not nearly as talented as him, the team trading that star player gets multiple first-round draft picks and first-round swaps, and they get the tools to rebuild after that player is gone. And Dallas got almost none of that. And I mean, when you think about what Rudy Gobert netted for Utah, and he's not nearly the player Luka is. And I know Anthony Davis is a great player for them to get in Dallas, but he's 32 years old, and Dallas has traded away a lot of their first rounders already. They don't have much to rebuild with once this team goes past its sell-by date, which is going to be 2, 3, 4 years from now. So by NBA standards, I would think every executive in the league is looking at this and saying this is a really bad trade for Dallas. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this goes when all that feedback comes back to the new owner of the Mavericks and realizes that the public opinion is they got robbed on this. How is that new owner going to react to the general manager who made the trade? That's going to be a little bit of inside intrigue that's going to be really interesting to watch.
What does it do for the LA Lakers right now and for this season? I mean, when you just think, okay, you added this guy to their roster, I mean, how much does it improve them? Are they a serious contender? And also the sub part of that question is, the word seems to be that the Mavericks only offered him to LA. I mean, wouldn't there be a host of other teams that would have taken this guy as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, he has another year left on his contract, and how many teams would he want to re-sign with him? I always thought, I don't know Luka, but I always thought if he was ever going to go somewhere, it'd be the Lakers, because LeBron's about to retire, and they'll be looking for someone like him. And
a new star, yeah.
Where else would he want to go? And so, they could have tried to trade him to Portland or some team like that. But would Portland think that they could re-sign him when he became a free agent? Probably not. So they had to go to a team, that they thought could keep him, whether it's the Lakers, the Knicks, whatever, one of the glamorous sites, you would think, or one of the teams that's always in contention. San Antonio to play with Victor Wembanyama, one of those kinds of deals. So they had to do that. But the other thing here is the guy Nico Harrison, who's the GM for the Dallas Mavericks. He used to work with Rob Pelinka, who's the GM of the Lakers. They were both associated with Kobe Bryant. Rob Pelinka was Kobe Bryant's agent. And so they have a relationship where they were going to talk to each other and not let it get public. And I think Palenka got the best of that friendship in this one.
As you know, we see this in baseball, and we've had these stories in baseball where a guy will be in the outfield, and then the crowd will find out, and he'll get told, actually, as soon as you come out of this game, pack your stuff off, you're going somewhere else. So how much do the players have a say in it? What say they don't want to go or want to be traded? Or don't you have a choice?
They don't have a choice. They don't have a choice. But what all they can do is do what Jimmy Butler's doing in Miami right now, is make yourself such a pain in the butt that the team has to get rid of you. Or wait until free agency, or let the team know, when I become a free agent, I'm out of here. And then the team wants to do something with you that would get you out of a place you don't want to be. The players have a lot more leverage that way now than they used to have. And really, it goes back to when LeBron left Cleveland to go to the Miami Heat. That's when you really saw the player power starting to come into focus. And so, yeah, they can be traded to anyone, but like in Luka's case, there are only a few teams they could trade him to, because most teams wouldn't want to give up a lot for him, knowing that he probably wasn't going to stay more than a year.
Okay, and then finally, let's just go back to that. So what does it actually do for the Lakers? Are they a serious contender in the West with this guy? How are him and LeBron going to actually get on court and play together? Who takes that final shot? All of these questions.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've been reading LeBron's always wanted to play with Luka, but who runs the team? LeBron has always run the team everywhere he's played. He's always had the ball in his hands. He directs traffic. His teams have played to his style, and it's been a great style. It's worked. I mean, he's been to so many NBA finals. He's one of the top 2 players of all time and all that. But how is this going to work now? And I'm not going to be watching thinking the Lakers can win the championship this year. I'm going to be watching just for the interpersonal dynamics between those two. For the Lakers going forward, how are they ever going to replace LeBron James? Well, they don't have to worry about that anymore. And like I said earlier, they're going to expose this guy, Luka Dončić. His one big weakness was conditioning, and now he's going to be exposed to a kind of peer pressure with the most fit athlete in the league, a guy who works harder at conditioning than anybody. And I think he might almost be shamed into doing the hard work on his body and preparation that he hadn't been doing. So going forward, this is just a great move for the Lakers. The rest of the league is reminded of Pau Gasol going to Lakers, years and years ago, and how the Lakers won a couple of championships because of that, or won a championship, or the Celtics, most importantly. This is just a great move for the Lakers. Can they win it this year? They have to go get some big men. They might do that right away, or they may not want to sacrifice assets and hold them out for a trade to try to get a third star who's a big man to replace Anthony Davis. I don't know, but most of the work's been done now, and it's just an amazing move for them.
DSPN. The Type 5.
Where we sit and discuss 5 topics du jour. In no particular order, we'll run through the Premier League results from this morning and celebrate Chris Wood again. Extraordinary effort from him over the weekend. The biggest sports story in the world right now is Luka Dončić traded from the Dallas Mavericks to your LA Lakers, Lachlan. Israel Adesanya, what is the future for Izzy after losing 3 fights in a row, and that's 4-5. Auckland FC leave it late again. Six Nations is at France and Ireland all over again. And the Super Smash yesterday, I don't know whether you watched it. I don't know how many people did, but I think that's part of the problem. It just doesn't seem to be attracting that many spectators, either on or inside or watching on the telly. Started with the Premier League, though. Arsenal thrashing Man City. Not a great day for Manchester clubs. Arsenal 6 points behind Liverpool now. Just a quick question. Does it alter in your mind at all anything about the title race? It doesn't for me. I still think that it's Liverpool's to lose. Imperious form all season. What, 1 game lost all year, I think, so far?
5 draws, 1 loss, and 16, 17 wins.
This was kind of like the COVID year, wasn't it? Where it just stomped everything before you.
With respect to the year that we won it and the season was suspended due to COVID, Liverpool, I think at most were like 27 points ahead of Man City.
Crazy.
It was absurd.
Yeah, it was tough. Yeah. Look, it's just it's just a team that just doesn't seem to lose. And every challenge put in front of Liverpool, like going to Bournemouth, tricky fixture. That Bournemouth had just beaten Forest 5-0.
12 unbeaten in all competitions, Bournemouth.
Blah. Let's talk about Chris Wood though, because once again, and I don't know, every weekend I just think wow, and then I just think incredible, and then it just I don't know, you kind of run out of words, don't you?
Incredible. Shocking with respect to Chris Wood. I talked to my flatmate about this yesterday. The thing about Chris Wood is that he had a really good run with Burnley, and then he got sold to Newcastle not long after that had been bought up by the Saudis. And everyone knew, well not knew, but felt that, okay, he's going to get some games, but eventually they'll buy some better players and he'll get phased out. And that happened. He got loaned to Forest. And I thought this is the end of Chris Wood in the Premier League. He'll go to a championship side. Maybe he'll come to the A-League. Who knows? Maybe he'll be part of Auckland FC. And instead, he becomes a huge part of this Forest team, who are one of the, probably the Cinderella story of the season.
No question.
And he just keeps scoring and a hat-trick.
I know. So I think he's got 3 hat-tricks now. He got one for Burnley. He got one when he went back to Newcastle and scored a 3 against them. And now he's got this one. And they were great strikers' goals. Head in at the far post, tapping from Malanga.
All that matters
penalty.
Is that you just score. It doesn't matter how you do it. Darwin Núñez can be, we laugh about it a lot, all these great skills and on the ball, off the ball, whatnot. He's a striker who doesn't score goals, whereas Chris Wood might not be the most glamorous-looking player, but he scores goals.
17 so far this year, and that's 86 in total.
Like, he's going to be named in the team of the season, which...
no question about it.
That's never happened for a Kiwi, has it?
And at the start of the season, he was on 71 or something like that, 70, and I thought, okay, it might take him 3 or 4 years to get to 100. At this rate, he's going to hit 100 Premier League goals.
Well, he's got more than Eden Hazard. He's, I think, one off both Dennis Bergkamp and Marcus Rashford, and he's in the top 50 for goals scored in Premier League history. It's unbelievable.
Now, we've just spoken to Ian Thomsen about the NBA trade, this blockbuster trade, Luka Dončić, and he's given us some reasons, and they're good reasons. Obviously, the Mavericks had decided that enough was enough. Maybe they'd been talking to him about his conditioning and fitness or whatever. He had about a $357 million max deal sitting there. Were you
$345, I think.
How surprised were you when you heard this yesterday?
This is incredible.
This is
an absolute atomic bomb going off in the sporting world.
Yeah,
I saw it.
Biggest story there is.
I got a notification on my Apple Watch, and it didn't tell me where. It just said Luka Dončić and so and so have been traded, and I thought, no, this guy's tweeting this has been hacked.
Yeah.
Everyone thought that. Every podcast I've listened to has said that. You just don't do this in sports. This is like the Patriots when they had Tom Brady trading him. This is like the Chiefs trading Patrick Mahomes. It's like the Cavs the first time around trading LeBron. You just don't do it.
Letting go Haaland now and letting him go to another Premier League side.
It just doesn't happen.
No.
So the fact that Mavericks have done it is, they can paper over it and talk about, we want defense now and Anthony Davis gives us that and we were worried about Luka's conditioning. I think if you've got a player that talented, you just don't trade them.
Well, he's your franchise. He's selling singlets is what he is. And this is perfect for LA, the most, glamorous of all the teams because of Hollywood being there and everything. They don't have LeBron for that long. Much longer, you wouldn't have thought, would you? Now they've got a guy that is an instant superstar the moment he hits town.
Yeah, for the next 10 to 15 years as well. Yeah. And look, I've been a Lakers fan for 15 years, and I've gone through 6 or 7 years of them being a joke in the West, and I endured that. So I'm a proper fan, and I love this team. But we always stumble our way into these superstars, and I actually feel bad about it because we only gave up one first-round draft pick.
Actually, just harking back to the football, Auckland FC 80th minute winner, another one. Another late one, another win on the weekend in front of another 15,000.
Not as dramatic as 90th minute ones, but still a late goal.
Well, I mean, actually, you're right. These days, an 80th minute goal, you've still got 20 minutes of the game to go, haven't you? But another great crowd for Auckland FC. 6 Nations. Is it France versus Ireland again? After the first weekend, can we already establish that they're the 2 best teams?
No, I think you've got to wait till Scotland plays one of those 2. And I think
Scotland play Ireland this coming weekend.
England were very good in the first half.
Play France.
England were good in the first half.
And Ireland play Wales. I mean, bloody Wales. If you don't win that one, it's going to be...
How many in a row is that then?
Well, it's 13 in a row now.
So it's going to be 14.
And it could be another wooden spoon. They're not beating... You don't think they're beating Italy?
Oh, they could. I don't know. Italy are...
But back to the question, though. Ireland and France are the 2 best teams in the comp, right?
Yeah, from the opening weekend, sure. But you got to wait till England and Scotland get their hands on England for France and Scotland for both of them. And then I would assume that, Ireland and France are probably the 2 favourites to win those. So until they play those games, it's up in the air slightly still.
They looked better to me, these teams, than they did in the autumn internationals, and that's fair enough, isn't it?
Well, that's the start of their season.
That's right.
It's like the All Blacks when they play in
We're
June. They
always
never
rusty,
look great in
we're
June.
always rusty,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So,
But now they've got all their players playing in the comps and things like that. I really enjoyed it over the weekend. It is the perfect time to watch rugby. Is a Saturday or Sunday morning over breakfast, and you see a test match
it
like
just
that.
would have been better if Ireland-England was actually at like 9 a.m. It wasn't. It was at 5 a.m.
That was the one you had to record.
Yeah.
But it was a bit like last year when the All Blacks were on tour. It's a super time to watch, isn't it? On a Saturday or Sunday morning over breakfast.
Yeah, cook breakfast, couple
Brilliant.
of coffees, sit on the deck. Yeah,
Nighttime rugby. Who would have thought it would? It's good up that end of the world. I still like some afternoon rugby down this end of the world.
Well, you know, whenever anyone talks about one of the great rugby days in New Zealand in the last few years, it was Blues Hurricanes on a gorgeous sunny Sunday afternoon at Eden Park. Granted, it was just after we come into lockdown, so people wanted to go to a live event, but, you know, afternoon rugby, daytime rugby.
Why do you think Auckland FC is selling such big crowds?
Because they're winning. If they
And
were,
also it's
hold it,
5 o'clock in the
let's not
afternoon
kid
in
around.
summer.
If they weren't winning, they wouldn't be getting crowds.
Israel Adesanya. Now, I watched this fight yesterday, and it wasn't on pay-per-view, and that's the first time in a long time he hasn't been on pay-per-view. And second round, he gets hit. He goes down. He was really upset about it at the end, but I think the ref probably did the right thing in stopping the fight. You know, he was on the ground getting pummeled. He got smacked in the first, basically an uppercut in the first round, rocked him. No defence there. He just doesn't look the fighter that he was. And it's, to me, when you're 36, he's 37, I think. Is it in September, October, something like that? But I think it's the wear and tear on the body, because he's been fighting 3, maybe 4 times a year for, 4 years now or even longer? I'm just wondering how much of that has taken its toll.
Well, of course it is. Now, I would assume it's similar to boxing, which is a similar type of thing that you get to, like any sport, you get to a certain age and your body wears down and it begins to let you down. Like, how old was George Foreman when it was like 45
when he won it again, yeah.
Now, that was...
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Now, obviously, as a writer saying he's not 45, but the point is that he's trying to win the belt for a third time, but he's been around fighting at a high level, at an intense level, in a sport that is all about pummeling your opponent. It's not like you're playing, I don't know, golf, where as long as your back's in good shape and, you know, you can walk a fair way on the fairways and whatnot, that you can get away with it. You can't. It's one of those sports where I would imagine it's a short-lived career, and if it's longer than that, then you're probably taking some drugs. So, no, Israel Adesanya, with these results, I don't think it's a huge shock. Nothing against him, no disrespect, but he had his peak, he had his prime, it's over.
It's over, you think?
Well, he's lost 3 in a row, hasn't he?
4 and 5.
4 and 5.
I wonder when he beat Pereira after losing to him, came back. Like, that was the moment in his career.
Well, that was the mountaintop.
Yeah, and since then he's lost 3. And I think he's losing to fighters that you wouldn't expect him to lose to if he was the old Israel Adesanya, but he's not.
Then again, I said a similar thing about Joseph Parker, and he's had this almighty comeback, so what do I know?
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. I actually think he's got a hell of a career actually on this side of the microphone in UFC as well, if he decides to give it up.
Yeah, sure. I also am curious, because this happens a lot in American sports, when fighters in the UFC, or just athletes in general, are they able to sit there and understand when the end might be near and can go?
I think it's the hardest sport in the world to give up.
But you go, you know
always
what?
think that you can do it.
Like,
one
I
more
thought,
time.
for example, I thought Rafa should have done it when he won the 21st Grand Slam, was the first one to break that 3-way tie with Roger
and the 14th French or something like that. Yeah,
yeah, which I think he won, and then he got to 22. Call it then, but he didn't. And athletes, I just don't think can do that. So he won't. I'm not saying Israel Adesanya should retire, but I just wonder in their heads, when you get to that mountaintop, like John Elway, back-to-back Super Bowls, he's like, that's it. I don't need to do anything else.
Yeah, the odd one does it.
Yeah. Maybe Brady should have done it when he won with Tampa.
All right, finally the Super Smash. Did you watch this yesterday? No. Did you watch any of it?
Look, I'm going to be honest. Probably for my job, I should. But no, I just don't have any interest in domestic cricket.
I'm going to ask Rahul about this in the next interview, but I think it is the worst of all the the T20 comps in the world. And I don't mean to be mean by saying that, but it just doesn't attract any interest. It doesn't really attract
it doesn't attract
the best players. I mean, it attracts the New Zealand players. We don't get the overseas people coming here.
Well, why is that? Because it doesn't have the big bucks the way that those comps
I guess, do. Yeah, and also, you know, it's on the back of the BBL, which is kind of like its big brother, which gets a lot more, just bigger crowds, a lot more money. They played the finals, both the prelim finals and the finals in Wellington, and you know, you need a pitch that's conducive to 160, 200 runs. I mean, the women's final, one team got 100, the other team couldn't chase that down. Yesterday was, 130 or something, and that's torturous for a T20. That's the slowest scoring there is.
Yeah, it's not a high quality comp. Remember
Ian
Smith, and it's no disrespect, but the crack he made when there was that wonderful catch in a game. It was at the Basin. It was last season. I think it might have been the summer before that he made a bit of a joke about, oh, well, look, it's only... Oh, no, it was Kerry O'Keefe said, oh, it's only domestic cricket in New Zealand. Come on. And then Ian Smith had a crack at the commentary and that made some news. But that's what the Australians clearly think about us, and it's probably what all these other leagues in the world think about us as well. But it's just a T20 league in New Zealand until Indian billionaires or maybe people from the Middle East turn up and buy the teams and pump money into it.
Add a team to it or something.
That's when it'll draw the talent. Until then, what's the point? Are you trying to compete with the BBL and these South Africa T20 leagues and the one in the West Indies or whatever, or Abu Dhabi or wherever this other one is that I think Tim Seifert's in? Like, you're not competing with those. At the same time, New Zealand cricket probably don't care because in their opinion they're just servicing the national side. I don't know. But long story short, I don't watch it. I don't have any interest in it.
Do you watch it? And how much interest do you have in it? Cricket to wrap it all up with today on the podcast. Again, thank you very much for joining us. Hit the subscribe button, like, share, follow, do all of those things. Our good mate, when we talk cricket, all cricket, is Rahul Patil, who joins us again. Welcome back.
Thanks, Marty. Always a pleasure to be on your show.
We were just lamenting the Super Smash, me and Lachlan, and saying that, look, I don't want to be mean, but is it the worst T20 competition in the world? And that it just doesn't carry any kind of real significance. It seems even here in New Zealand, where it's just not widely supported or watched.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's the worst in the world, but among test-playing nations, you look at the likes of India, you look at the likes of even Pakistan, who have the PSL, England got the 100, South Africa's got their own T20 comp. So, yeah, and with our neighbors having the Big Bash League that we, see so much on our screens, it doesn't have the same level of excitement, neither the hype of any of these tournaments. And one of the things that really hit me hard when I was watching those two games over the weekend was that you had the elimination final and the big final at the Basin Reserve. Both days, beautiful sunshine. On such days, if you cannot fill a boutique ground like the Basin Reserve, there is something wrong, isn't there? I mean, if you cannot get for your premier T20 competition, you cannot get the crowds coming in to watch it on a beautiful sunny day. There's something not right there.
Yeah, and also Wellington loves its cricket. I mean, we've seen that was, Test match days sold out and everything. And I also question the pitch that they used and whether or not they should have actually had more than one, or whether they didn't and they just didn't prepare it properly. But, I said to Lachlan, look, that's torturous scoring when the women are only scoring 100 and the other team can't chase that down on that pitch and the men are only getting 130. That makes for a really tedious, boring game of T20. And that's the thing. We want to see 200 runs scored in T20 cricket.
Yeah, and people always complain that, it's not the game for the bowlers. I mean, when you come to a shortened game, there is a high chance you're going to see lots of boundaries, lots of sixes, lots of runs being scored. You want to be at least in that 8 run per over kind of 160, 175 category, if not 200, which makes it a spectacle. But what we got over the weekend, wasn't. I don't think it was a fair contest between bat and ball. You want a white ball contest to be fair between bat and ball, so that everyone's got a bit of skill to showcase. But it wasn't that.
No, I'd like to talk it up. I'd like to hype it up, but it doesn't deserve it. And I've tuned in at various times, and I've looked at crowds, and they've been so sparse. And then, as you say, hardly anyone turns up to watch the finals. And let's turn our attention to what's happening overseas then. And two absolute blowouts I need your thoughts on. England losing the T20 series to India 4-1. There's a couple of aspects to this, but they just suffered their worst ever T20 defeat. Does that mean anything? And then we'll get on to the fact that Sri Lanka suffered their worst ever test loss to Australia. But we'll start with England T20. Does it mean anything when you have your worst ever T20 defeat, or is it just, oh, well, look, there's another one, we'll play another one?
Yeah, a bit of context to this as well, because Brendan McCullum, who used to be only the red ball coach for England, has now taken over the reins of the white ball team as well. So a lot of expectations coming into this tournament, thinking that he's going to turn their fortunes around. England's white ball cricket, since that 2019 World Cup, which they tied against New Zealand, I'm not going to say tied against New Zealand,
tied against New
has
Zealand,
taken, it's taken a backward step actually, and they haven't done very well in the T20 World Cup since they won the one in Australia, which was 2022 now. So 3 years, their T20 form hasn't been great in World Tournament. So at the back of all that, this was going to be a very important series for them. They haven't come out on the right side of the ledger on this one. And one of the key talking points has been their inability to combat spin and play on different surfaces. The batters they play Test cricket and T20 cricket all the same. It's played with the same kind of aggression, same kind of flair, but just not finding the right mojo for this tournament. We don't know whether it's too early because it is his first series in charge, but time will tell. And now we shift our attention to the ODIs and the Champions Trophy that follows.
Did India pull a Swiftie in that game 4 with the old 12th man substitution? I know you can do this in the IPL where effectively you can bring in a pinch hitter or another bowler or something, but there is an injury and they brought on somebody who is a completely different player. Is that kosher?
Yeah, look, if Harshit Rana and Shivam Dubey are like-for-like replacements for each other, then I am Harsha Bogle. All right?
Right. Okay. Yeah, it was a Swiftie, wasn't it? They pulled a Swiftie.
It was. But then again, they will just say, what happens in these situations is that once someone has a concussion, the team then puts forward a name to the match referee to say, this is the player that we would like to replace this player with. Now it's up to the match referee to kind of make that judgment whether the player being offered is a like-for-like replacement for the player that's injured. Now, in this case, it leaves a bit of a sour taste in the mouth because the match referee is an ex-India cricketer, Javagal Srinath. So, it starts bringing out all these things. Oh, he was an Indian match referee, etc., etc. And India did have someone else who would have been a more like-for-like replacement. There's a guy called Ramandeep Singh in the side who was kind of going to be a more suitable replacement. I just think it's one of those things, it's a judgment call made by the match referee. And not in my case, I don't think it was the best call made.
Finally, Sri Lanka. Worst ever test defeat. I think they started playing test cricket back in the early 90s, wasn't it, if I remember rightly? Maybe 92, somewhere around there.
Late 80s.
Was it late 80s? Yeah. And Australia just absolutely dealing to them in Gaul. Now, we saw our guys playing in Gaul last year and the spin dominating and things. How impressive is this Australian side? And obviously they are going to play South Africa in the World Test Championship as well. They just, it's not enough to win in your own country. It's when you start winning on other surfaces in other countries. And I thought that was a mightily impressive result from them. Or was it just terrible for Sri Lanka?
A bit of both, but you've got to give it to the Aussies. They turn up in Sri Lanka. Now, remember, this test match being played at Gaul. We've been to Gaul. We played 2 test matches there. It was turning square. We know how difficult it was in those 2 test matches for New Zealand. At the back of this, they won a really important toss, but I still maintain that the toss is only a part of the job. Whatever you do, you have to do it well. And they ground it out, 232 by Usman Khawaja, century again for Steve Smith, who's now gone past 10,000 test runs. And they picked Josh Inglis in the side. Now, for all Aussie fans who are going gaga over Sam Constas after his debut, look what Australia do. The first test match that they play in Sri Lanka, they drop Sam Constas because, again, they look at the surface, they look at the opposition attack, they look at the skill set of the players and the squad that they have, and they find the best fit. Travis Head has opened for them before in the subcontinent, who's had a bit of success. So they went back to him and then picked Josh Inglis in the side in the middle order. He scores a century on debut. Put on over 600 runs in the first inning. Then we all know that once you put on 600 in that first inning, it is difficult no matter which team is batting or bowling. So, hats off to them. They played well. Sri Lanka, on the other end, missed a few chances, dropped a few catches, didn't take a couple of important DRS reviews when they should have. And that's a part of the game which has become so important. You've got to be good at, seeing when it's out and making those calls. Not the best game by Sri Lanka. But look, they're playing at home. There's one more test for them to get it right. So hopefully they pull up their socks and we see the best of Sri Lanka.
Devlin.
That's our podcasting show for today. Again, if you're liking what you're listening and what you're seeing, then a small favour, if you will. Can you please hit like, share, subscribe, follow, Tell a friend about it. We are a fledgling podcast and show, the DSPN, and we need you. And if you are participating, well, just click that subscribe button. That would help enormously. Thank you so much if you already have. Again, tell a friend if you like. We're doing this every single day, putting out a show every afternoon. The DSPN.
This is the DSPN.